Back here now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, and in our last review of today's show, going over a very interesting game between the Colts and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers got their first loss of 2024 at the hands of Joe Flacco, actually, and the Colts 27-24 was the final score. Pittsburgh now at 3-1, and the Colts' big win go to 2-2. And looking at the stats in this game, I mentioned Joe Flacco because Anthony Richardson got hurt early in this one. He was out for a couple plays with a hip injury, and then he came back. And I don't know why they ran another run play. They ran another run play with him after he got hurt on the last run play, and he got hit by Minka Fitzpatrick, and he went out again. So his day was done earlier on, but Joe Flacco came in and played very well. 16 of 26 for 168 yards and 2 passing touchdowns after Anthony Richardson went out, obviously, and Jonathan Taylor was one of the stars of the day. He had 21 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown as well. Michael Pittman had his best game of the season, 6 receptions for 113 yards, and Josh Downs as well. I can't forget about him. He had 8 receptions for 82 yards and a touchdown. Very good performance from the Colts defense, but even still, it was a very close game because on the other side, Justin Fields, stats-wise, had his best game of the year. 22 of 34, 312 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. George Pickens, or also Justin Fields had a fumble lost in those stats. George Pickens, 7 receptions for 113 yards, and another fumble lost by one of the big stars for the Steelers. And Pittsburgh had 122 rushing yards as well, but Najee Harris only accounted for 13 of them, 19 of them. Justin Fields led all rushers with the amount of yards he got, but it's still a problem. It's still a problem for Najee Harris to only have 19 yards in a game. Is not good for this Steelers team to still only be still be at a 3-point loss is still pretty remarkable, but this is the first time Pittsburgh's defense also allowed over 10 points, Michael Pittman had also not had a game where he recorded over 36 receiving yards, and the Steelers lost both of those records, if you will, in this game. They allowed, obviously, 27 points, and Michael Pittman had a day at over 100 yards in this one as well, so not the best game by the Steelers defense at all. If there is going to be a loser, it would be that unit, I believe. But looking at the game recap a little bit more, the Colts came out very, very aggressive. They came out hitting hard on defense. They came out very aggressive on offense, going right at the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, running it right down the field at them. And before you know it, it was 17-0 early in this game. Pittsburgh hit a field goal to make it 17-3 going into the half. So very non-existent performance in this first half by the Steelers. Cordell Patterson had a decent game, but he was ruled out with an ankle injury. I believe it's a high ankle sprain. So Najee Harris, the bell cow now for the Steelers, only recorded 19 yards, like I said. And it alludes to the fact how they only put up 3 points in that first half. So not very efficient, but what I will mention is that George Pickens actually also fumbled the ball at the 3:13 mark of the second quarter, so they could have put up 6 points, and while it doesn't look like a big difference, obviously when you're talking about a 3-point game, in hindsight, it's obviously a big deal, but George had that fumble with 3:13 left in the second quarter. I couldn't believe it when I was watching the game. It was a great drive. They were putting a great drive. I believe that was the drive where Cordell Patterson got it going for them. And it was a good throw over to George, just nice and simple. And he was heading towards the sidelines, and the ball just got punched out. He was sort of holding it in one hand. And like the game was going right at that point, he fumbles it. Going out of bounds, he fumbles it back in bounds, and the Colts recover it. And it's just the Steelers walk away with no points, obviously. And then in the second half, the Steelers are sort of driving here again. They got something going to start the second half, and Justin Fields, very unfortunate for him, I think. It's the first real big mistake we've seen from him where it looks like he's just trying to do too much. He kind of slips trying to get away from Colts pass rushers, and the his elbow kind of hits the ground, knocks the ball loose a little bit, and the Colts players, defenders, credit to them, come in and really punch the ball out on the ground, and it's deemed the fumble. The Steelers lose like 20 yards or something off of that play, and they lose the ball also. So it was a big mistake, obviously, but even still, Pittsburgh's defense made some timely stops in the second half. The Steelers, I can't remember the last time they scored 3 touchdowns in a half. They did exactly that. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half to make it 27-24 at the 3:40-minute mark left in the fourth quarter. And again, after the defense made another stop, they went 3 and out after that point. Pittsburgh's last drive was looking good. Again, it looked like the momentum had switched over to the Steelers, right? Their defense was kind of coming up a little bit better now towards the end. I was thinking maybe like, all right, bad game overall from the defense, but if they were able to salvage this with this 3 and out, they did that, and the Steelers were to win or at least tie it, you wouldn't overlook it, but it wouldn't be like the end of the world, right? And they did exactly that. They got the ball back to the Steelers offense, and it was looking good. Like I said, the momentum, it looked like was shifting over to the Steelers. Justin Fields was looking like he was going to put together this 2-minute drive, and you get another botch snap. You get another messed up snap where after the game, Justin Fields clarified that it was his fault, that he just wasn't ready for the snap where he should have been. Basically, he clarified how like some quarterbacks kick their leg out, right? They kind of kick it out and kind of signaling to the left guard. If you guys like really pay attention to the snap, how the quarterback kind of snaps his leg, kicks his leg out. The left or right guard taps the center while he's making calls out or whatever, and kind of letting him know, to snap the ball. And Justin Fields said that, that was all great, that was all right. But in the last second, the Colts defense, their safeties, had actually rotated a little bit different. So Justin Fields took his eye off of the snap, right? Looking at how the Colts safeties had moved, he wanted to reevaluate everything quickly. But obviously the snap came in and hit him in the face, and they lost yards off of that, and they just couldn't overcome that mistake there at the end. And they couldn't convert, obviously, so they end up losing the game 27-24. And, you look at those 2 mistakes by Fields, and you look at the performance, and it's not like one negates the other. Mike Tomlin said after the game that it was just a very sloppy game from Fields, but also the entire team overall. But still, I think more so it's a credit to Indianapolis because their offensive line really just defeated the Steelers' defensive line in this game. TJ Watt, Nick Herbig really had no impact in this game. They ran the ball great early and often to set the tone, and the turnover battle was won by the Colts in this game, right? You look at the first couple games for the Steelers, right? The turnover battle was in their favor. I think they were coming in at +7 or something like that. But the way this Steelers team is made up, great defense, running the ball, and doing enough with Justin Fields, right, it seems. The turnover battle is so pivotal to that, right? You can't lose that because you lose that, it puts your team in worse spots, right? Now instead of, relying on your defense, you're putting them in worse spots after all these turnovers. And it's very unfortunate because it looked like they could have overcame that on top of this, but it was just like Mike Tomlin said, too many mistakes, too sloppy at times where they needed to be perfect, and they just can't lose a turnover battle and make these sort of mistakes. But again, with this loss, obviously it's not ideal with the Steelers obviously losing a game, because I think a lot of them share the same sentiment I'm about to share. It felt like they beat themselves rather than the Colts just dominating them. Credit again to the Colts because their defenders played great. To force those 2 fumbles was great defense. To still create a lot of pressure with no DeForest Buckner, with no Ebukam in their game. Credit to them. Their offensive line played great. Joe Flacco was hardly ever touched, only on a couple occasions. But still, through all of that, the Steelers were still like, you think back to those 2 situations, like I said, with George, at worst, that's probably 3 points. You're thinking about a tie game at that point. Justin Fields, again, if he doesn't fumble the ball or runs backwards, maybe that's another 3 points there. And still, that was you think of those moments, I can't help but think that maybe if one of those kind of swing your way, the Steelers, come out with a lucky win here. But there was also other moments that affected this win overall. For as bad as the defense was, they had chances to still stop drives, but it was kind of going that way where nothing was going their way. Honestly, quite frankly, Joey Porter Jr. in the first drive had a play on the ball from Anthony Richardson. He just missed, or it was just thrown perfectly right over him. That could have been a pass breakup or something. That was one. Joey Porter Jr. again dropped an interception in the end zone. A great read by him, but he just dropped the ball. That could have been points taken off the board. I'm pretty sure the Colts got 3 points off of that, so you're looking at a tie ball game potentially. Minkah Fitzpatrick's unnecessary roughness call, not not the right call. I don't know what else to say it as. Bogus call. It didn't decide the game. It had a big impact on it, but it definitely wasn't the only thing that decided it, but not the right call. I'll stand by that. And the biggest thing for this defense was just constant letdowns, was the third down conversions by the Colts. Another credit to them. They were very good on third down. The Colts converted on 53.3% on their third downs, and it's just not good for a good defense to not get off of the field. Over half the time to not get off of the field is not a good look. And still, their offense was right there. But still, overall, I'm not going to touch on it now, obviously, for the sake of time, but Justin Fields is still the quarterback of this team. I haven't changed my opinion on that. If anything, it strengthened it a little bit more because he played great. The rushing touchdowns were huge. The passing touchdown to Pat Freiermuth was huge as well. They're still learning things, obviously, like the snap. That can't happen again. And, not trying to do too much as well. Not trying to be Superman at times. But those are correctable. And it's not like I'm going to bench him now going against the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. He is still the quarterback. I was very impressed because this was the first test where you saw Justin having to do a little bit more in offense, and I thought he played very well overall. If it wasn't for a couple mistakes also by the defense and just everybody overall, maybe this game turns out differently. I don't know, but it feels like that way to me at least. But credit to the Colts, good win at home to the Bears, and now at home to the Pittsburgh Steelers, staying close to the Texans in that divisional race. But that'll be all the reviews we get to on today's show. We're going to preview the last Monday Night Football game coming up, the ladder kickoff at 8:15 Eastern Time between the Seahawks and the Detroit Lions. A good one here to talk about to close out the show. We'll be right back with that preview in just a few moments.